Yesterday on the show we had John Minto from the Palestinian Solidarity Network, a group of New Zealanders who are dedicated to the Palestinian cause. We interviewed him on his particular take of what's going on, and we had a particularly interesting discussion on that matter. Today, joining us to put the other perspective is Pastor Nigel Woodley, and he joins us now. Pastor Woodley, welcome to the show. Nice to have you on.
Thank you for inviting me. Nice to be here.
Now, tell us a little bit about yourself first and how you got involved in this issue, because you're not Jewish. I think the word pastor gives it away. What's your background, Nigel, and how did you get involved in this sort of Israel-Palestine issue?
Well, I've been the pastor of the Flaxmere Christian Fellowship in Hastings for 40 years, over 40 years now. And a big part of my life, and that of a Christian, is the Holy Bible we believe in. And, you know, you can't read the Bible without getting away from the fact that Israel plays a very important part of our Bible. And so that's the connection is right there. That's where it began. But I started getting involved in 2014 in public advocacy for Israel, as I felt a strong conviction to do so. And my very first flaunt at public advocacy was actually a counter rally to John Minto outside the St. James Theatre in Wellington, because he was calling for a boycott of a Israeli dance company who were dancing at the St. James Theatre down there. So we went to call him out, to call out his lies, and because we simply we can't agree with him that Israel is either apartheid or involved in ethnic cleansing. They are lies, and they are not true.
Okay. The obvious question is why are you involved in this issue? I mean, most New Zealanders look at the Middle East, including me, particularly at Israel and this latest outburst, and we just go, God, the brutality, it's never ending, it seems intractable, they hate each other, there is no solution to this matter. You obviously a little bit more optimistic.
Well, you know, I'm faith-based. I believe in a God who is in control of the universe and control of the Middle East too, but really? Man is out of control.
Well, I was just going to say, he's not doing a very good job then, is he?
No, man is out of control. But we have a God who answers prayer, and we're optimistic about the positive changes that could take place in the Middle East, particularly if the likes of Hamas are eliminated. And I think that's what needs to happen in this case. I think we talk about, I see signs saying free Gaza. Well, the first thing that Gaza has to be freed from is the brutal dictatorial governance of Hamas. And then the people of Gaza will be free, and the people of Israel can live in peace.
Yeah, okay, let's just go back here a little bit, though. A Christian calling for a Christian God to get involved in what would appear to be a sort of an intransigent dispute between Jews and Muslims, it seems slightly odd, don't you think? I mean, which God is there? There's only one God, I guess, in your perspective, but is he also the Jewish God, and is he also the Muslim God? I mean, they're both Abrahamic religions, aren't they?
Well, the Christian God is the same as the Jewish God. We believe in the same Old Testament. They
don't believe in Jesus Christ. I did say, Michael, they believe in the Old Testament, what they call the Tanakh. We believe in their Old Testament too, but we also believe in the New Testament, which introduces Jesus as the Messiah. So on that count, we believe in the same God as the Jewish people. That's for sure. But you know, we believe that God answers prayer. So at the moment, we're praying for the safety of all involved, for the innocent Gazan people to be set free from this dilemma and from this disaster. And we do pray for the removal of Hamas out of Gaza because they are behind it. But having said that, as the UN Secretary General said, and he said this, and I'll quote to you, he said, the attack upon Israel did not happen in a vacuum, he said. Mm-hmm. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. They've seen their lands steadily devoured by settlements and plagued by violence, their economy stifled, their people displaced, and their homes demolished. But the grievances of the Palestinian people cannot justify the appalling attacks by Hamas. Is that fair enough in your view?
I think
he has a distorted view historically of the problem. When he said it hasn't happened in a vacuum, that's where he touched a nerve, because in that statement he was basically offering some justification for the brutal attack of Hamas upon 1,400 innocent Israelis on the 7th of October. And that's why he's got himself into hot water.
Yeah, but subsequently to that, the Israelis have been attacking as only the Israelis can attack with the latest in military technology. And depending on who you believe, but scores, hundreds, thousands of innocent Palestinians have been killed in those attacks. How does one evil justify another?
Well, it's you call it evil, but Israel is actually doing what it has the right to as a nation.
What, kill innocent people?
It's not killing innocent people deliberately. It is.
Oh, but they know what they're doing. It's a byproduct of all their bombing. That's why they're killing people.
Michael, the people you're speaking of received clear warnings from the Israeli military to vacate the areas that they are about to bomb. They get plenty of warning. Also, they've been asked to evacuate to the south of Gaza. And because of
where there's no food or water for them because they're refusing to allow humanitarian aid to be transported.
There's more food and water down in the south because they have opened the gates to humanitarian aid. Trucks are flowing through. And by the way, Gaza is not totally dependent just on what comes in through those gates. She has her own means of power supply through solar energy. And Hamas is stockpiling huge quantities of fuel, not giving it out to be used by the residents of Gaza. They're deliberately stockpiling it for their use in war.
Okay, I can see that there's a problem there, but really what's the difference between what the Israelis are doing now and what the Allies might have been done in bombing places like Dresden? I mean, at the end of the day, they don't really care that they're killing Palestinian kids, do they?
Israel does care. Israel has been called by British military officers as the most humane army in the world because it goes out of its way to try and avoid civilian casualties. And the fact that in order to extricate Hamas out of Gaza, they have to use force to try and get to Hamas, the fact that Hamas uses the people of Gaza as human shields is not something that Israel should be blamed for, but the finger should be pointed straight at Hamas and a strong condemnation against them. It's in the best interests of the people of Gaza as well as Israel and the Middle East if Hamas is eradicated.
Okay, well that might well be the case, but it does seem an awful lot of collateral damage to get to that end. But going back to
remember though, Michael, just remember though, in the Second World War, in order to extricate Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime out of Germany, 2/3 of German cities had been reduced to rubble.
Yes, and most of us would think that was wrong. I mean, the bombing of Dresden. And in fact, they even thought that at the time. Even in the 1945, the bombing raids of civilian populations was considered to be extreme and immoral. And Dresden was used as a classic example of that.
That's fine for us in hindsight to say.
No, they thought that at the time. They thought at the time.
Some did. But the fact is that the Allies had to end the Nazi regime, and they did. And Germany and the world was better for it. And it's unfortunate that in wartime this sort of thing happens, but the reality is when someone comes into my house with a knife threatening to murder and kill and rape my wife and daughters, what's proportionate to that? Do I just find a knife the same length that he's got?
Yes, but again, Guterres is making... Yeah, but Guterres, you can't take the Hamas raid out. I think Guterres makes a fair point. He said the Hamas raid was unacceptable. That's fair enough. But what he is also saying is, you can't say that's an isolated incident. What led to that was the fact of how the Israelis have been treating the Palestinians going back to 1945, 46, 47. And his argument is that if you are going to decide to expand your borders like Israel did since 1967, if you are going to push Palestinians off their land and put Jewish settlements there instead and simply confiscate it without...
They don't push Palestinians.
Yes, they do.
Land.
Why are you mad? Of course they do. They have been tearing down Palestinian settlements and putting Jewish settlements there. It's been condemned by the United Nations, even for Pete's sake by the United States of America.
I think you're in a bit of a myth world there because that is not happening. Maybe on one or two occasions there's controversy over the way settlements go up. Yeah, I don't agree with you. But listen to this, Michael. I asked a Palestinian Arab living on the West Bank, when I visited Israel in 2016, I said, do Palestinians prefer Palestinian governance over them or Israeli governance? And she said to me, what you hear from the politicians and media is a lot of BS. She didn't give the abbreviation. She said the full word. She said, we prefer Israeli governance because the Israelis treat us better than our own leaders.